Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. Today I got something slightly different planned. I thought I'd do a plane review of the Citation C-560XL jet by Airsim 3D, which is available on the X-Plane store. Slightly different. I have a sector planned up to Blackpool, but it won't be an IFR flight due to the time required and the fact that I have probably got a little bit more time then to discuss things with you rather than sticking to a rigorous flight plan. It makes more sense to go VFR. Anyway, you can get this on the X-Plane store. It's about $69. Slight increase from its previous price of $60, I believe. There's not much information on these aircraft online other than this site and the sale page. I found 2 reviews on YouTube. 2 reviews by 2 different channels, that is, and both ran to about 2 hours each. I watched both were very good in-depth reviews. However, that was it. There was no other content, there was no other videos, there was nothing. So I thought, okay, that's fair enough. But I wanted to buy it anyway because I was looking for a small jet, business jet that is, small, easy to fly, simple to understand, and looks pretty good from the outside view, as you can see. I'm going to walk through the review in a chronological order. That's the right word. The right order. We're going to start externally, that is. So the purpose is, I will summarise points. So first we're going to explain what's in the files you get with the plane after you board it. We're going to explain the flight expected. I've just done that, so the flight to Blackpool. I will then talk about the operating handbook, which is an online operating handbook, which is unique to this aircraft, I think, and also a little bit of a pain, but we'll talk about that a bit more in a minute. Then I'll talk through the external visuals and things, interaction, various aspects of the external aircraft. Then we'll move internally and we'll talk about the cockpit, the cabin, and all the interactions you can do inside. Afterwards we're going to talk about like a generalised summary, I think, of all points, good, bad, and then I'll give it a rating system which is not going to be a 1 number. It's not going to be a 5. It's not going to be like a 8 out of 10, for example. It's going to be different scores rated in different categories. So we'll have scores for things like visual quality and sound design, cockpit instrumentation, flight dynamics, and realism overall. I have already come to my conclusions. I think it's important to get that out there now. And the reason is I got about 11 hours in the aircraft so far. So I've had 11 hours of practice. 11 hours is enough, I think, to get to grips. It's more than enough to get to grips with a simulation aircraft. The trips checklists are relatively simple. It's just that they take a long time to complete. So that 11 hours is probably about 3 or 4 hours of just getting started. Yeah, so go into the files, you obviously download the aircraft, you will extract the aircraft into your X-Plane folder, go to X-Plane and go into aircraft, and then you'll need to extract the file there. It'll come up as a long title, you can change it. I've changed it to the abbreviation of the aircraft name, which is the C-560XL Citation. In that folder you're going to have a few documents. You're going to have an installation instruction, which you should obviously read beforehand, and you will have 2 other documents which are sort of important. You have the document which will link you to the pilot operating handbook, which can be found online, and you also have a document linking you to the video tutorials, which can be found on YouTube. I've used both of them have been pretty good actually, in terms of finding out what I need to do on the plane when I was a bit stuck. And because it's all brand new to me and it doesn't, you know, we all learn, don't we? I think for a simulation, the expectation was to find the operating handbook, or at least some reference to it in a drop down menu. I did spend some time having a look for it on the menu up here, but there's nothing there's no dedicated menu for the aircraft. Still, the online one is suitable. It's just very, very long, so I'm going to bring it up onto the screen now before we get started so we can talk through it. I don't want to skip the pilot operating handbook because it's something that the developer has referenced constantly and keeps referring people to, so I don't want to ignore it. So I'm going to put the image on the screen now, and you should should be able to see the, let me just get it up for you. Yeah, you should be able to see the operating handbook. As you can see, it's not the easiest text to read. It has various colours there. That's, you know, that's the choice of the developers and the creators. You can't do much about that. So we're going to scroll through it. Now, just be aware this is going to take a while because it's a long book. And this book is long, and you'd think it comprehensive, involving and explaining everything, but unfortunately there are still gaps in it, and it still doesn't explain everything about the aircraft. So, very briefly, I'm going to scroll down. And initially, when I scrolled down, I was sort of gobsmacked. I was amazed at how long this thing is. I don't know how many pages this is, but it's got to be at least a couple of hundred. It's just constant text, most of which is, I don't want to sound too offensive, but it is just drizzle. If you want to make a pilot operating handbook, this is not the ideal way to do it. You need to keep it to the point, you need to keep it factual, you need to explain things pretty quickly, because an actual pilot would never read this, and the actual books that they read are certainly more condensed than this thing. I said a couple of hundred pages. I think I'm underestimating it. You can't read that through from end to end, but it does have a little section there on the engine, which is handy. Yes, you can't read it from all the way to beginning to the end, because that's going to take weeks. So what you need to do is you need to use the menu at the top. Let me just scroll down. So that's it's got to be over 1,000, easy 1,000 pages plus there. Yeah, there's an index, and then there's a section thing there. You can click the right one you want, and that should help you find it, which is a lot quicker. So let's say we want to find basic aircraft information. You know, principles of flight, aerodynamics, those sort of things. Perhaps we're completely new to the simulation market and completely new to aircraft. We need to have that information at the top, and it needs to explain the aerodynamics of this particular aircraft, because it will be different to things like a Citation X. Although the Citation series is pretty good in general, and the default Citation X by Laminar Research is, I've said it before on stream, it's brilliant. I rate that one 5 out of 5. Laminar Research did a fantastic job. And just while I'm on the topic, after I downloaded this aircraft, exited X-Plane 12, came back on, and found that X-Plane 12.2 had been released. So we're actually using 12.2 now, which is the brand new and updated X-Plane 12. And I tell you what, when I first logged in after that update, the style of the graphical sort of fidelity of the textures was improved, the sky was improved. Basically the game looked fantastic, and the external view of this aircraft looked great. I think this plane looked good on the outside, but I'll get a bit more to that when we get to the external thing. We're sticking on the pilot operating handbook for now, and of course welcoming. Now, having given you all a welcome, anyway, we'll get back to the handbook. Being distracted. So yeah, it's long. You can click on a section if you don't know anything about it. Explain new Explain 12.2 looks good. Let's click off of that. Let's close that window so you don't have to see it. If you want to see it, you can always go online and find it. It's comprehensive, detailed information on the aircraft functionality and systems, but it isn't. It does miss some information, as I said, and it's not exactly easy to digest. It's very difficult to digest it and read, and if you do want to find something, sometimes the explanations are not 100% clear, especially for someone that doesn't understand aviation or aircraft systems. The essential things it misses off are things like how to tune the radios, but I'm going to talk about that a little bit later, because it's not as straightforward as it makes it out to be. Yeah, so let's go to the external review, and we'll get walking around, and we'll get started on the external checklist and things. The checklist I brought up is here. Now, this is not how you get this up. There's no drop down menu to bring the starting checklist up. You will have to go in the aircraft to do that. So we're going to click on pre-flight, In order to get this up, you don't click on it, you simply hover over the pre-flight checklist and use the scroll wheel, and you can do the same on each one, but you will have to close this, click it on the central console, and then rig it up. We're going to go around and do the checklist in a sec. For first things first, we need to look around the aircraft. So I'm using the external view here, but I have managed to put it nice and low down. My initial thoughts were that actually, yes, it looks very good on the outside. The aircraft looks pretty nice, and it's got the external features. It's got the cones there, that's realistic. It's got the wheel chocks, it's got the engine covers, it's even got the pitot tubes on, so I was very impressed with that. And you know, from a visual point of view, it looks very nice. You do get closer and there's some fuzzy lines and things, and it doesn't look 100% high definition, but in general it looks pretty damn good. You can't really fault, I can't fault the outside too much. The light bulbs in the wing, it does, I don't know how to explain it, it just looks a little bit outdated on some of these light bulb designs. It's still acceptable and high definition, not high definition, but you know, it's easy to see it. I'm going to show you some more stuff over here. So we move to the rear of the aircraft now. The startup on this is different to a typical plane. You have to go outside to connect the battery and things. In general though, it's a good detailed looking plane from the external view. Sufficient reflections there, we can see the shadows, you can in fact see the reflections off the tail and things, so that's very good. They've done a good job to program that. Now, interaction with the objects. I can understand and appreciate the fact that they've made the chocks, you know, the engine covers and the pitot tubes unclickable, and they, you know, that does make sense. But it also doesn't make sense, and I think it comes down, somebody did mention this on a previous view, but about the price point. So for such a price you would expect interactable objects. I don't mind if the wheel chocks are not interactable, then they would be removed after the engines have started and when you're about to taxi, that's fine. But the engine covers and things should be manually removed. I don't know why they didn't put that in, but that's, you know, that's a decision of the creators, and possibly to make it a bit more easier to use for people. Anyway, we're going to look at the rear of the tail, because I noticed something quite useful. Is if you are a real world pilot, you'll notice they do have the misalignment feature on this aircraft, which I think is brilliant. So this is the alignment between the flaps and the elevator. It's currently in the downwards position, so it's not actually aligned right now. We need to have it in the upwards position and get it aligned. But if you are a real world pilot, you'll notice even on the smaller Cessnas they have that feature. But I haven't noticed it on the Citation X, so that's very cool. Anyway, moving over here. Visually very pleasing, but then you get a bit closer and it's like some things just look a little bit off. The texture down here though, the brake, the wheel system, and the hydraulics here is very good. I like this texture and I like this view. That's highly, I'd say that's pretty good. It's in line with something that I'd expect from such an aircraft that's priced at this sort of level. We also have an external door here, which I'm about to open. So this is for the rear baggage, and we also have a battery disconnect. Now what you're going to notice is that the interaction is pretty simple. It's not a click, it's a scroll feature with a mouse. And the battery connection here will, just like the real plane, allow power to be started up to the aircraft once you switch the battery on. And you'll also notice, excuse me for the slow movement, this is just X-Plane 12's movement at the moment, but you'll notice the engine covers have in fact been removed. Pitot tubes haven't been removed. I'd say that's probably something you want to get off at the same time as the engine covers. You can change the baggage as well. You can get that out of the aircraft, so you can do that. You can unload it. We're actually expecting 96 kg of cargo, so if I go into the iOS, bearing in mind there's no dedicated weight and balance for this specific aircraft, you can still do it using X-Plane's iOS. So we only want 96 on cargo, which is relatively decent. Remember, this is a VFR flight, so we don't have to worry too much. We do need about 1,000 kg of fuel, so we have plenty of fuel, and 730. Well too high there for the crew, but 730 for the total weight. And you can easily adjust that just by changing the weights of people in the aircraft. Just a general estimate, we're just about the same weight. Anyway, we've done the weight and balance pretty early. I haven't gone through the checklist yet because I'm just showing you the outside features. So baggage, you can stick that in, and once that's in you can close the door. I like that, that's pretty good. That's kind of the sort of thing you would expect on this plane, but as much as I love this feature, there's no, let me just move here quickly, there's no interactability with this small pod at the front. Now, of course, referencing real world pilots and referencing simmers, you probably already know that this little hood here is for storing the pilot's bags. So these should be interactable, these should be openable. You should be able to stick pilot bags in there as well. The fact that they aren't is just slightly worrying, so I'm going to select this view and keep it nice and simple by moving quickly. So we close the battery door. So we connected the battery, we've checked the alignment. So what you do to do that, you put flaps to 7 and then flaps up. And you'll be able to see the stabilizer moving. Or you should be able to see it. That's probably got something to do with the fact the battery's not on, and the fact that, in fact, one thing you should be aware of when you spawn in, the default status is it shouldn't have the controls free, it should have the controls locked, but as you can see they're unlocked on default. Yeah, so from an external point of view it needs to be default locked. There's not really any initial indication either of where to go at the beginning when you spawn in. There's no menu, there's nothing to guide you through it. There's no checklist available unless you go into the plane, and finding it unless you read that pilot operating handbook online is going to be difficult. And let's face it, I've said it before just a minute ago, not many people are going to want to read that pilot operating handbook because it simply just doesn't look appealing to them, and it doesn't give you an indication of what can or cannot be interacted with or how to interact with it. Anyway, moving on to the next part, what we are going to do is we're going to move into the plane now. We've done our external checks, so we're going to go up to the door, and I like this, taking into account the view of the engine as well. That looks decent from a distance, but up close it's not looking too good. So door wise, we click open, click down, but I did take 2 hours to get initially set up in this and to establish what was actually meant to be done. So it took me a while just because I had to watch those videos and read the POH to some extent. Anyway, the door opens very well, the textures look okay, they don't look the greatest, but now we're going to move from the external view, which I think is pretty good, and we're going to move internally, and we're going to focus on things like the cockpit and the cabin. So let's go inside. So for initial thoughts, it looks okay, it doesn't look superb. It's I won't show the cockpit yet, I will show you the cabin. So it doesn't look A class, and I don't think it looks high quality, but yeah, the interior, the resolution is not close enough to be considered high quality for X-Plane 12's new update, and especially for X-Plane 12, that sort of expectation that you want high definition images. It looks okay, but you could do with high texture quality and probably a more updated system. This is actually a very old plane. It's probably one of the oldest ones that they made back in the 90s. So if anyone knows about the CXL, it was in 1998 when it first came into service, and they sold a couple of hundred. So this one in particular seems to be based on one of the first ones because its interior design is very, very outdated, I think, compared to like the modern ones anyway. So let's keep walking around. So we have a nice selection of seats. As you can see, we have 7 seats here. You know, 4 in the middle, 2 in the back, and then 1 here for what I assume is a flight attendant. We have a interactable feature. I won't focus on the textures too much because I've just talked a little bit about it, but I'll talk about the interaction. So we have things like reading lights, table lights, and just be aware, it works there, but sometimes the clickable region is not easy to find. You have some nice water, you have coffee. I can get over this, the texture in the water. I've seen that in other aircraft in the X-Plane store, that's absolutely fine. The reflections are a bit strange though, it's of the cockpit, so we have an issue there, perhaps visually. But yeah, interactability with the reading lights and table lights. Let me go back to the external view, I forgot something. So, one of the things at the external view, open this rear door using your scroll wheel, and you can connect the GPU unit. The GPU is actually pretty good as well because it gives you the option then to charge your battery and save battery power. So let's get this started. So it says on the instructions on the POH you should click the button. Again, very realistic. You would expect to find this on such an aircraft. I hope it's not too loud, I'll turn it down a little bit. But in general, the sounds on this are... Let me turn it way down. The sound on this thing is not very easy to separate from it. It will be this loud inside as well, so... Let's go here again. In fact, let's go here. I've got a quick view. I'll turn that off a sec, just because it's too loud. So back into the cabin. I've quick viewed a passenger. They've got passenger lights. They've got reading lights. The chairs fold back. Texture quality not great. I've mentioned it. The view of the fans. You have a nice bathroom back here. There's not much to say about this. This is just typical aircraft layout. I think it's the views and the quality people are most interested in. I'll show you in the water barrier in a second. Nice looking sink. Not interactable with the drawers though, which was a little bit disappointing. And you can't interact with the seat belts. You can't interact with this drawer here or these ones down here. But the door here will be interactable in a second. You do have the option here for lights. You do have a call button, I didn't realise there. Water heater which functions. Now this rear door is a bit of a secret, so you have to slide this open. I've struggled to do this, but you can open it for the water barrier. And there should be something in there. Let me just try and open it. Okay, so I've forgotten how to open the door. Anyway, that's you can open it for the water thing, but we'll do that when we're in the air, I think. Moving on to the cockpit, so we summarise the cabin. It does look okay, but it's outdated again, and graphically speaking, it's just not. I don't know. You wouldn't expect it to be that sort of quality of X-Plane 12, and for the price as well. Let's go in the cockpit. So my first thoughts again is some of the fonts used in the cabin do generally, they are all the same fonts and they're all the same. They're all the same basically. They look frizzied at the edge. They don't look high quality. This looks like a really bad choice for a font. The roof. I mean, again, it's a brutal review, but you know, if you're making an outdated aircraft, and it's still a good effort by the developer, there's no doubt about that. It's just very outdated, and this is graphically on par with Flight Simulator X, which is 15 years ago. The cabin, again, you come in, here's the checklist. I'll show you how to get that up in a sec. Again, the colours are slightly off. Let me sit in the captain's seat. You have textures that are blurry. You have, you know, things that are It's just blurry in general, and the color scheme is off. This is not sufficient quality for X-Plane 12. The colors are too light and too blue. The layout is also slightly odd. We have a Garmin GPS there, which is out of place. I know where they chose it. They've explained why they chose it. They said it was a simpler choice than a FMC. However, I would disagree with that as someone who's played on a flight sim. The FMC is actually really easy to operate. So I suspect there's another reason they've not programmed it in, and I've got a feeling it's because they don't understand the physics and the plane systems properly. Because the FMC is complicated, but if you're a pilot, you don't have to worry about programming it. That's the difference. You know, it's a plane that we fly. We don't fly computers. Well, we don't program computers, so we don't know about that stuff, but we do know about operating the FMC. But yeah, anyway, it's still fine for navigating from A to B. So if you want to get the checklist up, when you come into the aircraft, you need to select this from off to norm, and you need to click that button there. That's not actually obvious at the beginning. It's not obvious how to connect many things. Quality wise, we've got some nice stains there. A coffee stain, that's a good detail. Some details look high definition like this. This looks very good on the headset. This down here is I don't know what that is. It's odd. It's very odd. The texture of the dashboard, if you zoom in, it's blurry, but it does look alright when you're at a distance. Compass, I actually like the compass. This compass has got nice reflections on. The compass is done very well. If we go into my view, check the default view. So this is X-Plane 12's default view, and it's very good. It gives you a good view of the cockpit. But unfortunately, when you spawn in default mode, the yoke is not there, so you do have to make that visible, and that is, I'd say that's in contradiction actually to what the developer has said about principally being about realism, about trying to make this a study level aircraft, which is questionable because obviously in a real aircraft you cannot turn the yokes. You know, you would spawn in with the yokes there even if it was a simulation. I've never heard of that being the default version. I've also found that the default version includes a realism switch, which is up, or an augmented switch, which is, again, that's not in line with a realistic aircraft. Again, they've explained it in their videos and their POH, but if you want to say this is a study level aircraft, you can't say that there's a switch for augmented or real mode because it's just simply not there for pilots. It doesn't exist in the aircraft. We're going to use realistic mode anyway, and we're going to do a bit more of the checklist while we're in here, and I'll give you a summary of the internal views in a sec. So we check the stabilizer alignment. We're not going to bother checking that again. The checklist does say we should check things, but those things won't be included, and some of those things that are included include hydraulics, indications, includes the extinguisher for the fire, which is not on board. That's actually a essential item. You can't fly without a fire extinguisher, unless of course it's hidden somewhere, and I haven't found it, but it's very unlikely to be hidden anywhere, because it's supposed to be in the cockpit, or at least near the cockpit in the cabin. I'd say behind the seat would be a good place to put it. So yeah, that would be expected on a plane of this size. Mic, headsets and things, O2 mask, we know they're on board, and we know that we don't know goggles are stored because we can't see them, and we have no indication that they're anywhere here. The checklist itself would be better on the drop down menu. It would also be better at being able to flip through an actual book. Checklist goes in this little slot down here, so the developer could possibly think about adding that, putting this checklist, which is quite comprehensive but missing things and, you know, a little bit repetitive. They could put that into a booklet down here which you could click on. Okay, back to the checklist. The oxygen is there, and it looks like a good oxygen. It looks like a good high quality image. That's a lot better than what we saw in the cabin, and it's better than some of the other textures in the cockpit. But it doesn't have functionality, so that's obviously where we lose some of that realism again. Okay, so as you can tell, I've mentioned the sound. We can hear the sound quite loud on the road. That's a sign that it's not been isolated properly, so the internal and external sound barrier hasn't been properly put into place, I don't think. Otherwise it wouldn't be so loud and we wouldn't be able to hear traffic like we can. It's an expensive aircraft. You would expect high definition images. Anyway, control lock. We're going to do a bit of checklist, like I said. So control lock should always be locked, and it is actually locked, but the control surfaces can move, so there's a little bit of a bug there. Now if we unlock it and we lock it again, that's going to make the control surfaces lock into place. Now it should be like that when you spawn in, but unfortunately it's in lock mode when you spawn in, and the controls, including the ailerons in elevator, can in fact move, so that needs to be fixed. Moving into the throttles and switches in general, I know they're all off. I've been in the aircraft a few times now, and I know it starts pretty basically. There's not much here, to be honest. There's not much in terms of avionics, in terms of systems. I haven't switched it on, so maybe there'll be a little bit more. Battery power down here, and it's worth noting that from a distance it looks frizzy and blurry, the lines and the writing, it's small. Even when you zoom in, you have to zoom in a little bit further, and it's about this point when it becomes clear. So batteries over here, we're going to stick that on. We got a positive rate on the DC volts. I have charged that up on my previous flights. We're running about 25 at the moment. Avionics. Now typically, I've never seen a checklist. Quickly, one note on the checklist actually. It has many sections, but it doesn't include all the sections required for a flight. So again, for the price for a study level aircraft, supposedly it should include many more. There should be a preliminary check. There should be, that would include a walk around and other checks. Then the pre-flight. You should have a before starting checklist, a before taxi checklist, before takeoff checklist, and after takeoff checklist. Those cruise, descent, and approach, that's alright. But then it's got a before landing, landing, and after landing, so they need that for the takeoff as well. So before takeoff and after takeoff, they're very good, and before starting as well. So if you get those checklists in, it would be a bit more in depth and a bit more accurate. But in general, it's very, very useful. Avionics wouldn't typically come on before the engines have been started. I know I'm going on a lot, but I want to try and give this a long and in-depth review because the ones I've seen online haven't been as in-depth as this. I'm working through the checklist. We'll follow this listed as it tells us to. We know what to do. So green oxygen's just about in the green there. There's no way to take this off. Fuel quantity and balance. So we get the avionics on. Oxygen in the green. It's an interesting choice actually. The CXL actually has 3 panels there. It has the N1 in ITT. Then it'll have oil pressure and temperature in another. And then it'll have fuel quantity in another section. The pairing of this into a 2-panel layout is actually similar to the XLS, which is a separate model out, which is the same model, but it's just a bit of a newer model of the same one. Anyway, fuel's good. I've just refueled, but it's in pounds. Unfortunately, there's no option to change that to kilograms, and we can't change the internal temperatures to Celsius either, so that might be worth thinking about adding. Okay, exterior, interior, emergency lights. So we're going to put the emergency lights on. Battery switch, emergency. Let's do that. There's not much coming up for the emergency instrumentation, but that's absolutely fine. Let's just do it the way I've been doing it. Everything else is alright. Engine left panel. Pilot clock. We see the co-pilot's on as well. Clickable regions are a little bit hit and miss. You do have to click all over, and sometimes it doesn't work. You see I'm clicking on it. There we go. Standby HSI, so if we zoom in, the quality is not great. This is blurred. The AH, these are all abbreviated, but it assumes people know what it's talking about. You know, realistically, people are not going to be concerned about this checklist if they want to get up and starting. I'll talk a bit about the comms in a second, why this is on borderline dysfunctional and unusable. We have power. It says turn it off again. Strange choices. We can't check the oxygen. We have a non-interactable feature. Circuit breakers. Now, the circuit breakers aren't functional either, so we can guarantee they're always going to be pushed in. Although they have taken the time to model them and they look on par with the real aircraft. I'm going to show you a real picture of the aircraft in a moment after we've run through the pre-flight checklist. Okay, circuit breakers are all checked. We've just done that. Cockpit switch is set. DC power on. Let's turn the power back on. Avionics. I'll turn it off and on so you can see its function. So this is obviously the X-Plane 12 Garmin 1000. Day night. So if you turn that on, it will dim the lights, and then off will brighten them. You'd think it'd be the other way around. AHRS 1 and 2 slave. So let's check this. This is the one we're looking for. This is their slaved. Their slaved. Standby tower power. Let's give that a test. A green light on there, and we're going to turn it on in advance. Anti-skid, of course, near the landing gear. The visual fidelity is not great. I just keep saying it because it's just so obvious, and it's for the price you really would expect more. I'm going to turn the yokes on to just create a little bit more realism in this environment. Wing engine de-ice check. Windshield anti-ice is coming on. I'll go get rid of the yoke again. You can't see the visual. I don't know if you can see that, but this is all fuzzy and not clear at all unless you zoom in, and it's not practical to be doing that when you're flying. Anyway, that's on. Wing inspection, tail floodlights off, system dump, system select switch, automatic, so we go manual and then automatic. Emergency dump, we can either have it on or off. That's pressurization, of course. Select a knob, so we can choose emergency norm, we can turn it off. Cockpit and cab temps. Now, I had to calculate what this is in Celsius. I think that's about 23 Celsius, and it goes down to 22, which is way too warm. So if you turn it down to 65, that's about 18 degrees Celsius. Engine sync, just below the throttles. Just zoom in. That's turned off. Emergency lights should be armed already. Arm them. Passenger safety, we're going to stick that on. Worth pointing out that the sound effects on this cockpit are very, very quiet, and when you interact with buttons, they're not very loud. When you click them, they should make a clicking sound, but they sound very I don't even know if you can hear that. Let me turn it up a bit. It sounds very quiet to me as well. I'll turn it up so you should be able to hear it. Okay, it doesn't make a sound there. That does 3 dings, 4, 5, 6 dings, and then goes off, but it's very quiet. There's no enunciation for seatbelt lights, or we have got cabin door thing, but we'll do that in a minute. Engine sync, pulse landing lights off. So when you're in an aircraft, you should have the nav lights on when you're inside preparing things. Cockpit recirculation fans. Although, to be fair, this is a different plane, so we'll give them the benefit of the doubts and we'll leave it off. Circulation fans, if we desired, we'll put it on low. Speed brake down here, we've retracted it. Now, you notice obviously the armrests and the chair can move. That's nice. Nice little feature. Speed brake, emergency lights, safety on engine instruments. In order to get the actual instruments on, you have to go here and click this button to on. That's not obvious either. And same down here for the co-pilot. The layout is very odd. The frequencies on the radio stack should be like you'd expect. The pilots there, the captains, and then the co-pilots may be over here, but his is way down there. There's also no indication of outside air temperature, which is one of the most, I'd say it's one of the most important things. As it would be very useful to have an outside temperature gauge in this aircraft, or some kind of indication somewhere. You would expect it down here, or even an ICAS system, but this aircraft doesn't have an ICAS system, which is disappointing. So that means you can't monitor the hydraulics, you know, the engines. You can't monitor the APU system. You can only rely on this thing, and that is it. And it's just very little information to operate the plane. Right, rotary system test. This is where it fails, I guess. So we have a fire warning turn test. That should be making an alarm sound. A fire warning test would warrant an alarm sounding, so we don't have a fire alarm sound. We have two things lighting up, but there's no other warning that there's a fire, which means it's going to be very easy to miss it. Landing gear. Battery temp. Okay, that stick shaker didn't actually shake the stick, so the stall warning test, if that was a real plane, it would fail, because if the alarm went off without the stick shaker actually causing the stick to shake, then it would be a fail on the test. Okay, so the reverses, windshield temp, overspeed. And that's that one done. So we've done the start pre-flight checklist. Close that. Click on to. I'm going to skip the APU. We're just going to go ahead and start this with the starting. It's one of the few aircraft with jet engines that I've flown that doesn't actually need the APU to start. It does have one, of course, over to the right hand side. It's very similar to the Citation X. You can see that I've got about 10-11 hours in already. Used about 1 hour 10 minutes on the APU. I mean, I've got to take into account things that I put on my review, my written review, that is, of course, that would be a text file. Sound quality is not great, and the lighting quality is not great. And when I say lighting quality, I'm talking about like the way these instruments look. They look very outdated. I remember Flight Simulator X from like 15 years ago being similar to this in many ways, but also better quality. So I feel like this is based on something else. Like this is the graphical quality of a 20-year-old game. The outside looks good, and come inside and it looks like an outdated cockpit, and then you zoom in and it looks low quality. So someone will have to come into the comments and section after all, watch this review, and maybe a real CX pilot and tell me what it is with this design and layout and colour scheme, because it looks... Does it look realistic to you? That's what I want to know. Does it look realistic? Lack of high resolution images, which you would expect in a high quality, well, I say a high cost aircraft. There is a nice selection of implementations though, and there is a nice selection of things to click, and you can interact with things, so there's a good amount there, but it's still not enough. It feels minimal, but it feels like there's still enough there to give me a satisfying experience, which is good. Semi-sufficient startup procedures. We are missing some things off the checklists. The checklist doesn't take into account the preliminary checks, and it doesn't give you an indication of when to give the ATC a call. It doesn't mention filing the flight plan, which you would do. I mean, most checklists, to be fair, don't say that, but you know, it'd be a nice addition. It would also be nice to have the checklist as a real booklet. I think the developer's more than capable of pulling that out of the bag, because the progress so far, even though I'm being what appears to be quite harsh, is actually, you know, it's actually okay up to now. It's good. I'm enjoying it. It's just that it's let down in some places because of the visual stuff and the unclearness of things. That's about it. Anyway, nice selection there, as I said. Accumulation of aircraft hours and APU hours, it just touched on that. So this is a really cool feature, and this is a unique feature to this one because every other plane that I've flown, an X-plane, hasn't had a working total hours feature as far as I'm aware. So you can actually count your real pilot hours in this aircraft. So 11 hours almost. That's real time, by the way. 1 hour 10 on the APU unit. Fantastic way to build hours in the aircraft and to count them as well. In terms of visual quality, just going back to the quality, the yoke looks very good. I like the yoke. After having a look at the actual real plane myself, the quality of the yoke is very, very high. These are high quality images on the yoke. It looks good. You've got the buttons on there. They don't actually do anything. I did click them. I tried to interact with them. There's no function. But yeah, thumbs up for the yoke. I think from a distance, okay, I was being a bit harsh. It does look okay. It looks good. It's just, from a cost point of view, it needs to be about $30, I think. Going back to the external stuff, so I read on the site, Pilot Operating Handbook, that they want to make it realistic by, or easier to get outside the aircraft by turning off wall features, so you can pass through the aircraft. Let me just show you. You can pass through the aircraft, which I think is a little bit contradictory to what they said about the pilot needing to do things themselves, like the battery disconnect and the battery connect, like the you know, the other things that they'd need to do. So if you want the pilot to do them themselves, and you should put on the walls so they can't pass through walls, and make the pilot walk outside the plane down here to the back of the aircraft, so they have to disconnect the GPU unit. Otherwise it's going to be, it just adds and takes it to that level of where people will feel satisfied and they'll feel very good about it. We're going to start this back up. So we'll get the GPU on. Just because the battery's running low, we are running out of volts on the battery. It's very loud. The sound quality is high because there's no proper separation from the external to the internal. So I think we've covered the internal aspects to a good extent. Let me turn it down. But principally, it does go against those of us who want to fly high quality images aircraft, which is what we'd expect for this price. For me, it initially took 2 hours to get started. That's because I had to find things in the Pilot Operating Handbook, and because I had to watch some of the videos, the guide tutorials, which are, by the way, the developer Mark, I think his name is Mark. He's done a good job of doing those tutorials, and the videos there are actually very handy. Now, you don't have to watch them all, but if you want to get to what you need, they're in there. They do miss a few features, and they talk about things in a way which makes it sound easy, which of course sometimes it isn't easy. Yeah, what I mean is they're searching for things in those videos in that Pilot Operating Handbook which aren't going to be implemented to begin with. People will look for buttons, systems, and they won't be in the aircraft to use anyway. There's no simplified pop-up menu or checklist. That would be very good as well. If you could put it up here, have its own C-560XL menu, I would like that. I think most people would prefer that actually to a cockpit checklist. Right, I think we're moving ahead of ourselves. We're actually moving. I've moved into the next section by accident. Moved into my summary points by accident, but that means we're basically free to get started now. The official external internal review's been completed. So let's get on with the checklist. So before starting, passenger briefing complete. Battery switches on. Generators off, emergency lights, parking brake, cabin door. Right, now this is where people get out the cockpit. So we get out the cockpit door. We'll walk over here, and we're going to shut the door. Lovely sound of the pneumatic pressure there coming out of that door. I do like the door as well. I'll give this a decent rating. It's again, zoom in, it doesn't look great, but its functionality is on par with what I would expect. Emergency lights work. We have functional lights in here, but we won't be able to use them. We have a seatbelt, no smoking sign, which comes on as well. So to lock the door, scroll to the right, turn it to lock, turn it back up to neutral, and then pressurise it with the rudder button. So hopefully you've just heard it. The pressure in the door has just built up, which has allowed the seal to form, and that is excellent. We can confirm that down here. We have a cabin light, or entry light, and at night this looks very nice. So you can have them on or off. The lights in the cabin not that great in the day because it's obviously daytime. And just zooming in, it doesn't light them all up. It lights a few of them up. So yeah, the light bulb there is showing light there, but it should be showing in the direction that it's shining in. Okay, we'll turn those off. Save the battery power. But very cool feature on the cabin lights and the door lights there. It's a nice little touch to add these cups and things in. I'd like to see one thing I would like to see, actually, just going back to my customer view here, with the drinks, and bearing in mind you've got fold out tables. That's nice. So let's say that the developer upgraded the graphics and made it a bit more realistic. You can also shut the shutters, that's cool. So they made it more realistically visually. Then they should consider adding more things on here. So I know this is an outdated plane, meaning it's an old plane, it's based on an old one. Just more things in the cabin that we can see. I don't know, maybe a passenger or two. One of the concerns I did have was the thickness between the window and the inside seal. That's very thin. If you've ever seen the real plane, you'll know that it's much more thicker than that. This is very thin, and it makes the aircraft look like it's made out of paper in a way. But the actual window on the real one it's at least 4 or 5 inches thick. It may be just that because it's a simulation, it doesn't come across well, but it just doesn't look like it's got that thickness to it. Anyway, those can close. You got the nice warning there about the seats. So door is closed. We need standby power on. Check. Wing inspection, floodlights, voice recorder. Okay, voice recorder over here. We're going to hold that for 5 seconds. Hopefully we're going to get connected to the Vatsim network. There's a green light. Reset that. Again, hit and miss on the clickable region there. You should be able to literally click right on the center and it should function. So we tested that ground recognition lights there with the beacons, and just to show you, in fact, let me just turn that navigation light on. The outside lights and the outside view looks very cool, especially in the sunlight. Nice beacons on the back. We're flying in the British Golf Sierra 9 Romeo 9 livery today. You have a choice of 12 liveries. This one's obviously suitable for me because I'm from England. And I have to say, I do like this livery, so well done. Well done to the developer, because one of the summary points I think is important. I've accidentally closed my summary points, but one of the summary points I wanted to mention was that you get a lot of liveries with this aircraft. You get 12 liveries with it, which is, to me, at least, it's inclusive. It makes me feel like, okay, great, the developers taking into account that people exist in the United Kingdom, you know. It's very good of them to do that. And let me just run through some of the livery. Air India, like an Indian livery, an Italian livery, a Canadian livery, American, Spanish. You have Swiss, things like that. So it's very cool. Very cool. You can download more of those liveries as well. So yeah, those liveries give an inclusive feeling, and knowing that the possibility to download more exist is also quite exciting for me as well, as someone who likes flight sims. We have navigation lights on, beacon lights on, annunciations check. Right, we're not going to do it with an APU. We're going to do it, but we're just going to do it standard. And what we're going to do now is we're going to connect to the Vatsim network, and we're going to point out some of the problems with the communications panel, which I think are really important to I'd say either remedy by reprogramming them or completely getting rid of them, because if you have the Garmin system you have the option to tune frequencies on there, which is good. Or if you have this, it makes it a little bit redundant, which is, you know, sometimes it's a little bit of a pain. In terms of the frequencies, you can't choose the right frequency because it will only move by 25 points. So 124, let's say we want to tune into the local frequency and there's nobody available at the moment for us. Well, let's tune into the Unicom 122.8, so it probably will work for this because it's an even number. But if you wanted to tune to 820 or 810, you're not going to be able to do it because it moves by 0.25. Realistically, in an aircraft you can only move them by 5 points, so it would go to 830 next. It wouldn't go up to 850. Now, I've tried to find the information on this and why it won't do that. There's no explanation there of how to change it at all. There's just no explanation as to why. But the way you can do it, and I had to figure this out myself, so you can't do it on the com, you have to click on the GPS Garmin system and you have to change it on there in order to change it by 5 points. Now, if the dev can change the com stack, if they can change the com stack and have it changed by 5 points each on that second number, then that would be really improve the com system. Oh, excuse me, could be blocked up. Going back to the yoke, so the systems on the yoke aren't interactable, even though I read and saw in the videos that they are. We got somebody on gap with traffic there calling in from Vatsim. Yeah, so the things, I'm pushing the trim, you know, nothing, it works there, but it doesn't work on here. Now maybe the functionality is not visible because I'm not using a proper yoke system. Maybe you have to use a proper yoke in order for these buttons to work. But I am holding buttons, I'm clicking the region, there's no functionality. There's no clickable option on there for me with a mouse. I have tried. Let's get the engine started before we run out of power. So the generators, fuel boost on, the ignition's already on. You'll notice in this, I think it's a little bit unrealistic, but the engine spools up extremely fast. Introduce fuel. Nice annunciation there, we can see the alert, we can see the fuel boost. Referring back to the comm panel, we can't actually see the TCAS if we turn it on. It doesn't say TCAS on here, which it should do. That's a crucial feature. We can't adjust the volume, so this volume button down here doesn't actually work. We can only mute it. This speaker doesn't work. It doesn't change the volume. I don't know why. This one's the headphone doesn't either. So the communication system for me is not great. It's basic, and you have to click the GPS to change the frequencies, which is a pain in the butt, to be honest. Right, we're going to skip through the checklist a little bit and just get the second engine started. Again, starts up a little bit too quick. If that's how it happens in real life, forgive me. I've never seen a jet start up that quick. Master caution, master warning reset. Generators, so we want to turn the generators on. We're going to turn the thing off outside. Click the emergency stop. Get off. Wow. See, that looks like a pretty plane. That looked like a very pretty plane then. I don't have any more adjectives. It looks very good from the outside of the engine's running. I'm gonna fault it, but
Get the traffic, moon brake, it's about 2 entering ILS 26 left.
But yeah, the inside needs to match the fidelity of the outside. The buttons on the yoke, I'll say it a third time, they definitely do not work. I've downloaded the latest version. I bought the latest version from the store. I don't know what else to do on that. I'm not too bothered. That's not a concern for me, but it would be nice to see them moving. Anyway, engine start. Let's get the generators on. So the engines will now charge up and provide power to the battery. If you don't put the GPU on, just be aware the battery will drain fairly rapidly. Now I know it's taking a long time to do the startup and things. I want to be as thorough as possible because, let's face it, the developer has put a lot of effort into this aircraft. And it's obvious that they've put a lot of effort into it. And it's obvious that they might be a single developer. I think they are, which makes it even more incredible. But it's got lacking features and we're getting distracted. So we'll skip the checklist to taxi checklist. Avionic power, check. Flight controls. Elevators. Ailerons. Nice rudder control. A fantastic spoiler there. And by the way, the spoilers look very nice when you deploy them. Unsurprisingly, they look realistic. So we do the spoilers. The animation is well programmed. Anti-ice. Let's just check the DCs. Oops. And the right side. Okay, so that's a pass. Pressurization, ground altitude. So we actually need the altimeter. It would be a good suggestion to put the altimeter on that checklist. Or at least get the local QNH.
Traffic, Moonraker 802.
1011.
5 miles 5.
600. I'm not sure about the altitude reading. I didn't know Biggin Hill was 600 feet in the air. I have my doubts about that, unless that's not 600 feet and it's about 40 feet. I don't know if the QNH is working properly because that altitude seems wrong. We're going to program that in anyway to landing altitude. Someone is just calling themselves Moonraker on the call sign. That's pretty funny. Com check. Okay, we can't really do much on com check because they're not. We're on Unicom, but that's about as real as it's going to get. The augmented reality mode I can understand, but if you want to have a realistic aircraft study level, you need to get rid of that feature.
20 miles south of Loppo.
Okay, flight plan ATIS clearance. You would get that before starting up typically. You get that before starting up, and then you get your startup clearance afterwards. If you do it differently in this jet, I can understand because it's a small, it's a light medium-sized jet, but it's still very lightweight and small. It's smaller than the Citation X, which is fantastic, by the way. Avionics flight instruments check. We can change that to this feature, which is cool. The color scheme, that's not the prettiest looking that's not the prettiest PFD. You know, the colours are slightly off. The looks cartoonish, I think, so that needs adjusting. It would be good to see these adjustments, but I don't think they're going to happen, to be honest. Right, we need to do the test. Check. And co-pilot's down here, so it's a bit of a pain. Now, your dampers on, that would typically be on for taxi and takeoff. Stick to turn 3. Lavatory door latched open. Usually we'd have all doors closed and sealed for takeoff, not open, but it's latched open. Enunciation panel. Right, fuel boost. Let's get fuel boost back onto normal. Okay, that's normal. That's just PS. That's basically just pitot and other kind of heat. So that would be pitot and static heat. We don't need that though. Pre-taxi. Taxi path clear. Passenger safety on. External lights. Let's get the taxi lights on. So we're going to 2 recognition lights. Again, the taxi lights look nice. The models, the pilot models are questionable. Reverse thrusters, we'll taxi and check them on taxi, and we'll put the flaps on pre-takeoff. Let's go ahead and get the active runway. Don't have any ATC available, so we're going to taxi to runway 03. Actually, let's program the FMC so I can show you how it works. So flight plan. Now, if you're doing an IFR flight, it will program the altitudes and things in. It just won't follow the VNAV profile as you expect it to. It's complicated apparently, but if you had a proper FMC in here, down here, this is why this area is blank, this is where the FMC would be. It'd make the process 10 times easier, and I hope that the developer takes my comments on board and realises that he's got a good potential aircraft here. It's just lacking in the most basic of features for X-Plane 12.2. Anyway, November Hotel. But yeah, overall very good. So Blackpool, we're going VFR today. We don't have to worry about any airways or SIDS, stars. We can go up to our cruising altitude, which is 28,000 feet. So we're going to go straight up to 28,000. Pressurization is being set. We need to set the runway heading, so 03. Do be aware that it's a realistic operating aircraft. I do give it credit actually for its physics and its aerodynamics and its flight realism. You have to tune the system, of course to the runway heading when you land, otherwise the ILS will not intercept. 030. I'm going to give them a call out. We've changed takeoff runway today, so it's not a long taxi. It was runway 21 earlier. What's it going to be? Juliet, Foxtrot, 03. I am glad. I'm glad to be flying a British call sign, and now we have London Central online. So this review has gone from a long start up to now being able to get into it. So I appreciate anyone who's been watching. I'm not really checking comments today, I'm just trying to get this review done as thoroughly as possible. So Vatsim radar. Last night I did complete a successful flight from London City to Guernsey. It went well. I followed the IFR flight successfully. So hopefully that gives you some understanding of what's happening. Echo Golf Kilo Bravo, you'll notice on the Vatsim radar my plane doesn't appear as a Citation, it looks more like a 737. Okay, we don't have ATC, I thought we did. Love Centre, that must be completely out of the area. Yes, it is. We're picking up on radar ATC that's miles away. Biggin Hill traffic, Golf Sierra Romeo 9, Romeo 9, taxiing to runway 03 via Juliet Foxtrot. Okay, let's go. Parking brakes released. Thrusts forward a little bit. You'll notice the ground idle is by default on in this aircraft, whereas in the default Laminar Research Cessna Citation X, it's an option on the lower panel here. You can choose ground idle high, which I actually recommend.
Traffic, IZ6 Hotel just past Mayfield, VOR joining the ILS 26 left.
And just be aware, if you want to communicate, you have to pull the comm feature, otherwise you're not going to be able to be heard on the radio. What a beautiful evening though to be flying in the C-560XL. And the new at 12.2 X-Plane is looking absolutely gorgeous, I have to say. The quality of the ground services and just the reflections and the weather in general have been elevated to a whole new level, so I really want to just thank Laminar Research. You've made the game look even prettier and even more realistic. It's peak flight simulation. This aircraft is not peak flight simulation in terms of visuals, but it's handling on the ground very well, and it's handling like a real aircraft would. It's handling like a small jet, which is heavily loaded. So we're going to put 7 degrees of flaps. We're taxiing down Juliet. You'll notice that the stabilizer misalignment will go off. It takes about 20 seconds to align. The V speeds come up. There's no way to calculate them, so it automatically comes up with them when you put 7 degrees of flaps. Although it's the exact same no matter what the flap setting and what the weight and balance. just be aware that you may have a higher takeoff speed and you may have a lower landing speed or higher landing speed, so don't always trust the VREF. Okay, we're holding short. Gone over the hold line. Let's do our pre-takeoff checklist. Taxi, we didn't check the reversers, let's just take on there. We got an armed. Wait for the deploy signal. Retract them. Again, the animations of the reverse thrusters are absolutely fine. They're exactly where I'd expect them to be for such a small jet, nice and speedy. Okay, brakes, steering for reverse thrusters. Takeoff speeds, we confirmed. Taxi lights. Let's turn the landing lights off so we can get ready to take off. Fuel imbalance, check. Okay, takeoff checklist. Flaps in takeoff position confirmed. There's no way to tell where the flaps are unless you look down here. There would usually be a flap indication meter up here somewhere. It might even say it on the PFD. Speed brakes, trim, set. Anti-ice. Let's get the pitot on. Windows closed and locked. Crew briefing. So in the event of a go around, we're going to make a turnaround back to runway 03.
We're now descending 3000 for the ILS runway 27 right.
Okay, very good. Ignition is on. We don't have to put the pumps on because it's quite... I'm going to assume it's warm outside. We don't have an outside air temperature gauge. If I click off the checklist, just bearing in mind, TCAS does work and it will show you other aircraft. But if you click on weather, I haven't noticed it working just yet. Anyway, going back to the checklist, ignition, pitot. We're going to use pulse lights, transponder to TCAS, so click altitude. Check normal instruments, usually is. No fuel imbalance that I can see. Annunciation panel off. Taxi lights, pulse lights. I know the takeoff procedure, so we don't really need the checklist for that. We can use the climb checklist though after. Right. I do like those flashing beacon light, flashing strobes underneath. Anyway, strobe lights, just reminding myself to get the strobe lights on, show you them. Fully functional external lights, very good looking as well. We've disconnected the quasi GPU before the engine started. It's very loud.
3 Tango, we're still descending 3000 and we are about to establish the localizer runway 27 right.
We're going to give it an announcement in a second. I'm just waiting. I just want to explain about the comms. We cannot change the volume in the comms, which is really a pain in the ass. Please change that, developer. Please, please, please change this so it can function. It doesn't need to work on everything. It just needs to change the volume, and it just needs to be able to change this dial to 5 points, and that for me will make this system better.
3 Tango, established the localizer runway 27 right. Someone now contact tower.
Let me turn it down to the headphone. I don't know if I can turn it down or up, but it doesn't have function. Anyway, let's get going. We're waffling on a bit too much on this flight.
Gatwick traffic, RSS 6 Hotel, 2.5 mile final, 26 left.
Biggin Hill traffic, Sierra 9 Romeo 9, departing runway 03 to the north, VFR flight. I've given the call out completely wrong. Should really say VFR departures to the north, but most pilots will understand it. So let's get going, let's get lined up. After takeoff, just quickly skim through. This will be in the pre-flight briefing or pre-takeoff briefing with a co-pilot. We have got a co-pilot on board. If you don't want to flick through this checklist, you have the option of going to X checklist and downloading one for it, but of course it's very, very long as well. Line up on the centre line. We're going to see the planes in action. I do not recommend pressing the takeoff go around button on your joystick, or in my case the Xbox controller, because it will overspeed the aircraft's engines. You simply advance them. We're going to advance them to, let's set the N1 percentage, so let's set about 85%. Usually about 88% for climb, but I think we're going to be climbing at a slow rate, so 85 is absolutely fine. Okay, we're all clear. Get to the runway threshold and we'll go full blast. Co-pilot view. What an evening to be flying this plane, it really is. Couldn't have picked a better one. Advanced thrust, 85%. There we go. Okay, we're speed is advancing, nice. There's V1. And rotate. Positive rate climb, gear coming up. Keep an eye on the instrument engine panel. Don't need to retract flaps. There's 160, so that's our safe climb out speed. We'll climb up to about 3,000 feet. And then slow added ascent up to about 2,000 feet per minute. So the vertical speed indicator doesn't tell you how much you're climbing, it simply points to the number. So yeah, it'd be very handy to have a number on there as well. Comes up with the altitude nice and fine. I think the transition level is about 4,500 feet. We're going to track the flaps, pitch down to 10 degrees. I'm sort of flying this like a Citation and 737, but it's generally the same procedures in most jet aircraft. Okay, hydraulic pressure, we should have put maybe fuel pumps on to get rid of the issue. So they have to take, let's do this climb checklist. As we climb to 28,000. The trim button and features very, very sensitive as well. I'd say that's a little bit overpowered, but it handles excellently. Very good on the handling on takeoff. It looks good outside as well. I'll just show you a flyby. And we do a linear spot. A lot of drift on that turn. Anyway, we're going to pitch down. We're going to try and speed up to a good altitude, but as you can see, we're climbing rapidly. We've set standard pressure. There's 3 options. You have 3 options in this aircraft to change it. You have over here, so that's 1. Then you have 1 here, and then you have 1 here. The option to change the inches or hectopascals is good. I don't use the auto throttle because in real life there isn't one. You would expect to find a auto throttle on perhaps an XLS, for example. Okay, after takeoff checklist, flaps up, gear up, throttles are in climb position. You can see that on the green illumination climb button section. Fuel pumps have got rid of the hydraulic pressures. Let's take them off onto normal. Let's take the ignition onto normal. I already know the checklist just because it's mostly training from other aircraft, to be honest. Engine sync, so we go down here, we can stick that on fan. So it has that option. Oops, turn the engine off a sec. There will be that, ladies and gentlemen, accidental cut off of the engine. I'm going to maintain this heading for now. I'm just going to select flight level. What do we need to do? So we need to turn that to 3, I think, to get this to function. So heading. I don't think you can click nav but not heading. This was functional earlier. Okay, VNav, nav approach works. Select GPS, navigation. It may be because we didn't program it into here that we've not, although we did change it to 28,000. Your damper should be on before takeoff. Passenger switches coming off above 10,000 feet. Altimeters, standard pressure set, recognition lights. So I've never heard of anybody turning strobes off, although to be honest the X-Plane Citation X also tells you to do it to some extent, but I'm going to leave the strobes on. My preference, to be honest. We need anti-ice on. We don't have any outside temperature reading, which is why it's important, because it will tell us whether we need the anti-ice or not, so that'll come off the engines. Windshield air comes on as well. APU, we didn't use an APU, so let's climb checklist and cruise checklist. There isn't any FMC, so we can't calculate V-speeds. The pilots could probably calculate it using, you know, maths and weight and balance, but there's no easy integrated feature, and I don't think people are going to want to calculate this off by heart using a pen and paper. So it's done automatically. It's like a V188. It's just the same every time. There's no difference. The flight level realism is decent with the dynamics and handling, especially when taxiing. That was good. The autopilot doesn't really function properly on one flight plan, but that's and it can't bank beyond 15 degrees like the Citation X, so you have to turn half bank off and keep the bank on high in order to actually fly the aircraft. So course is set. Can we lock on to flight level and altitude yet? No, we can't. So how do we do that? Turn that on to 3. I've noticed this is a bit hit and miss as well. Sometimes you have to turn that off in order to get the autopilot to function, or you have to turn it up and then back down to 3. And this again not functioning, so it may be a failure. Let's check. No failed systems. Handling calmly as we fly over the United Kingdom. Look at the clouds low in X-Plane 12.2. The upgrades look absolutely amazing. They've made the weather system and the cloud system look really realistic. So yeah, X-Plane's upgraded its systems. This plane looks pretty when it flies. We're going to turn the strobes off, the TCAS alert thing off as well. I think the old layout and the fact that it's an old plane and it's clearly based on an old plane, I think it's based on one of the original models from the 90s, makes it feel quite old. Now I'm not touching the controls at all and it's flying itself, so it's quite a stable airplane to fly. You can't change that speed level thing unless you put augmented mode on. But yeah, it's the outdated look of it I think that puts people off. If it was a more modern avionics system, people might be more compelled to fly it, but it's that outdated feeling that makes it feel like a 1970s plane. It's not, of course, it's a 1990s, early 2000s plane, but it's still a 20-year-old plane, and avionics has come a long way since then. It's got to the point where you know, pilots will probably find it hard pushed to crash the plane because it's so advanced to prevent them to do so. And it's also not obvious how to change comm frequencies. It's not getting any indication, so maybe the POH might need updating to explain that you need to click on the Garmin section to change it. There's no indication of how to turn the PDF autopilots on. Hydraulics readings doesn't exist in this aircraft because there's no ICAS system. No V-speed customization and no flight planning unless you... Well, there is flight planning, but it's not... I don't think it's needed. You just need to use the compass if you want. It's probably a lot easier. So that's 28,000. Altitude can't be selected yet. I don't know what's going on with that. Maybe if we select nav1 GPS. It's GPS again. Click down here. I'm gonna have to descend. Reduce that thrust down to cruise. Just wait for the cruise thrust thing to illuminate. There we go. So since we're on Vatsim, we'll have to obey the rules and follow the flight level we got filed, which is 2,800, 2,800, 28,000. I still can't get over how good this game looks. They must have been working hard on it over the last few months because it looks absolutely fantastic. One more attempt on the autopilot. So we can't turn the autopilot on. Can't turn it on at all. There we go. So you have to turn that knob a few times in order for it to get to the autopilot functionality, and then you can click flight level change, and then it will follow the flight plan you got planned. So navigation, I'm going to follow this all the way up to Blackpool hopefully. Course is set, heading set. Let's set it to the same as the course. Now we're going to go in for a visual at Blackpool where I will program the ILS if it's the correct runway. Okay, are we following the flight plan? It's been a bit hit or miss following this flight plan line in the past. So we've actually gone slightly north-south. North-east, sorry. So we need to go up northwest. Echo Golf, and there's a straight line. Yeah, we're VFR anyway, it's not a problem. We're not following particular airways. So 28,000, looking very nice. Co-pilot, captain. Checklist. Ignitions needs to be off. We're at no heavy rain. Have we got it off? Normal. Ignition, crossfeed is required. There's no imbalance. That's the cruise checklist. Let's put the map on for a bit before we get to our descent point. As you can see, we have not really any other aircraft in the vicinity to worry about at the moment. Actually, there is a plane there, could be crashing into us, so it'd be interesting to see the TCAS system. Oh, there it is, my mistake, 204. We got the autopilot to work. I recommend trying it with a IFR flight and a VFR flight. Appreciate anyone watching from the beginning who's popped in or out. I know I had a few views at the beginning, quite a few people watching, probably seeing what the aircraft was like and whether it was worth it. As I say, there was only 2 reviews on YouTube of it, so it was disappointing not to have more content available. Obviously the channel is available called Airsim 3D, and that seems to be the developer who's made the time and effort to put those videos out, which are useful. And I recommend you watch those to get an insight into the aircraft functionality, which is worth it, because it's not the worst, but it's not the best either. Okay, I'm just checking the comments, so welcome in. Apologies, I've not been reading the comments all. The comments, that is. I've just skimmed in and seen people commenting and assumed it was somebody else, but it isn't. So let me just read these comments. We got someone called Virtual Airport and Plane Spotting. I don't know if they're still in the stream. If you are, hello. Last aircraft I flew 7 years. My career was the Citation Bravo IRL. XL is somehow similar, great plane. Okay, so last aircraft I flew was the 7 years. So we actually had a real pilot in the stream. That's fantastic. That's actually really glad to hear that. I'm glad real pilots are watching this thing. There we go, another one after many years, come back to try explain. If you are still watching, if you come back to watch this on replay, I hope you do. It's looking a lot better with 12.2. Somebody else has said the front compartment is for avionics, not pilot baggage. Well, unfortunately the front compartment is for baggage as well, and the avionics, there's no avionics in that front section. The avionics are in the cockpit. If you mean the nose of the aircraft is the radar system. I don't know why they would put the avionics in there at the front. It wouldn't be so easy to access it. It's mostly pilot stuff that I've seen going in there. I've seen it on the real plane as well. If there is avionics, then that's a different configuration to the one I've seen, because it's not in line with what I did. Witness baggage. 60XL. going to bring up that picture of the cockpit and a set of the real aircraft. I did find one of the XL eventually. There was a lot of the XLS available. It seems like the more popular version, to be honest. Just read more of these comments, catch up with them. Exactly, just 500 baggage compartment of the nose. I mean, this is a 560, so it's still a 500, isn't it? 500, I mean the Citation 212 S2 Bravo 5 and Encore. Okay, that's a new one for me, but alright. I'd like to see YHD Texas. Yeah, well, I agree with that. Virtual airport and plane spotting. Really hope you hear my replies to your comments. I did mention some previous streams, so stick around and wait for comments. I would like to see my HD textures as well. We need to see it interior wise at least. The exterior is actually looking not too bad. It might be a bug to fix with the yoke not appearing on startup. Yeah, well, it hasn't appeared on all the startups I've done in this aircraft so far, and I've done about 6 or 7 so far, so I think that might be a bug. It should be there as default on startup, I think. And, you know, things like the panel should be realistic on startup as well. If you people want the augmented mode, it should not be the default version for the aircraft. No fire alarm in this aircraft, that's interesting. So you'd think it'd be like a legal requirement to have a fire alarm in the aircraft for the engines at least, or the carbon monoxide, carbon smoke detector. I see. So the X-Plane 11 version, you couldn't get to the battery view. Right, I don't know how that makes sense. You could just change your view to an external view. Radio issue, yeah, the radio issue I think is important. It's the 5 points on that second number and the radio comm panel specifically, otherwise it's redundant and it makes the Garmin 1000 the priority system, which is obviously not preferred for me, and probably not preferred by other pilots either. The jet spool's up in real life. Okay, that's good to know. So I didn't know that. So the Citation X is not quick, it's relatively slow. Did you forget to disconnect? No, I've done that. Okay, no flap indicator annunciation in this aircraft. So it seems like Cessna really went bare bones on the design of this actual plane. That's probably why this is based on an old plane, because it's got more switches and dials in it. I guess I can see that actually. The developer wanted it to give us an interactive plane, so most modern avionics would actually be more akin to monitoring a computer, but this is definitely more hands-on, so yeah, bravo for that. Yeah, well, the Airsim 3D's in the chat, everybody. If anyone's watching this on catch up, you can read the comments. He's going to take into account, I'm assuming his mail, take into account things that I've said, which is good. There's a lot of developers out there who are not willing to do so. Let's check the status of our flight. We're not going very fast, we're going about 195. Let's speed up slightly. Okay, we're barely up near Manchester yet. There's Manchester, it's looking packed. We'll probably have to transition their airspace and give them a call. Just looking in the cabin a little bit more. What I'm going to show you is the back, the restroom. So the water barrier, we open the door. Yes, so it's working now. Now you go into the door here, and I can understand why they haven't textiled it and put a texture in there, but because they don't expect anyone to go into it. It looks pretty bad from this angle, just because of this wall. So I need to make that a little bit more realistic. You go in, and then, you know, they haven't modelled the interior, which is kind of playing on the assumption that people aren't going to go in here when In reality they are, and I don't think most people are going to bother with this cupboard, to be honest. It's yeah. It is important to have the water feature, the water heater, because if you don't turn that off you may have a fire, and there's not really any way to put that fire out. So close that door, water barrier, and we call this a vanity closet in the corporate jet world because it's fancy. We've talked about the seats reclining, we've talked about the tables, we've talked about the sort of visual fidelity of the internal cockpit and things. Since we're not following airways, I'm not sure what's going over the bank. There's something going wrong with the navigation, perhaps. Straight to Blackpool. Oh, I see. We've intercepted our flight path, and now we're flying down it as expected. London Centre has in fact just come online. I think we're still within London Centre area, so let's go ahead and tune them in. They haven't sent me a message though, although we are on VFR flights. Who's in Manchester? Actually no, London Centre won't cover us because we're usually covered by London. Okay, it is London North, my mistake. Let's tune that in. So I'm going to show you how this doesn't work. So it's 12133. So you can tune that first set of numbers, 133, decimal 705. No, there's no way to do that. 705. Let's do that. Let's give the London Centre a call. They may ask us to tune a certain transponder code, which by the way you can't tune using these two buttons. You have to use the clickable region like this. I hope they're going to help us with the approach into Blackpool and at least give us some VFR clearance. One thing I've noticed that since the update of X-Plane, they've added many more birds in the sky. Just be aware there's an increased risk of bird strikes. Right. Everyone else is checking in with London North, that's absolutely fine.
London, hello, thanks, climb for level 36, sorry.
It's absolutely packed. We're going to give it a call now.
London Control, good evening, EC2420 with you at flight level 360 for 370.
EC2420 London Control, hello, thanks, after air, get through direct lamp, sir.
Direct Lancer, EC2420.
Fraction 1 November Mike, descend to altitude 4,000 feet, and the Leeds Bradford QNH 1009.
So 4,000 feet, QNH 1009, fraction 1 November Mike.
Fraction 1 November Mike, the left heading of 050 degrees.
050 degrees.
Just curious if my regular subscribers are actually in the chat. I don't recognise the other person who's in the other. He said he's a Citation Bravo. Right, I don't really know what.
Either 6260, my Unicom 122-78, bye bye.
Citation Bravo. I mean, if you want to put your knowledge to the test, sir, if you come back, please do.
November Mike, descend to altitude 3,000 feet, you have 21 miles to run.
To altitude 3,000 feet, thanks, fraction 1 November Mike.
London Centre, good evening, Golf Sierra 9, Romeo 9, with you, flight level 280 in the north, heading to Blackpool. Okay, are we transmitting?
London Controller 340 Yankee.
Golf, Sierra 9, Romeo 9, London, hello, Squawk 050, action Squawk 0545.
Squawk 0545, go for Romeo 9. Okay, just as expected, we got a squawk code.
Hello, thanks. It's the odd bed, 1 mic arrival, redirect odd bed.
So, tune it with the click. Oh.
Odd bed 1 Yankee arrival, direct odd bed, Emirates 348.
Not the easiest thing to do.
Fraction 1 November Mike, to left heading 340 degrees, clear Dallas approach, runway 32.
It's 340 degrees on the heading to approach.
There's no other way of doing that either. If we use the GPS.
Delta descent flight level 110.
Descent flight level 110, Postman 22 Delta.
Easy 9 Alpha Echo Unicom 122, that's some 8, bye bye.
122, just no, easy 9 Alpha Echo, see that.
It's very hard to change these numbers. Blimey, I cannot do this. So this mouse clickable thing might need, I would recommend changing this actually and just having a dial in there. I know it might not match the real aircraft and these buttons will do it, but surely this is easier. There's literally no way. Okay, finally. And there's no way to get 0 on there, which is peculiar.
Control, good evening, fraction 398, Victor, flight level 390.
Fraction 398 Victor, hello, London Control, Squawk 0510.
So my understanding is the squawk function doesn't work, so you can't identify yourself to ATC.
Golf Romeo 9, you can redirect Bravo Papa Lima, report ready for descent. You can expect the ILS approach runway 28 Blackpool.
Fantastic, he's given us the runway 28 ILS into Blackpool. Cleared the VPL for the ILS runway in Blackpool and the ILA. Golf Romeo 9.
Golf Romeo 9, you can redirect to Bravo Papa Lima and Vector's ILS approach runway 28. When ready, descend to flight level 150.
Roger, cleared for the Bravo Papa Lima approach runway 28. When ready, descend to flight level 150. Golf Romeo 9. Okay, we got some bad weather conditions. It's probably a good thing he's given us the ILS. So now we can really test the systems. We can program the ILS landing as well. So we got on procedures. We go on to arrival. We're going to do the Bravo Papa Lima, which is a very familiar one. Okay, nothing's come up on procedures. That's concerning. Okay, that's very concerning. Why is there no procedures?
015 descend 080, Postman 2 Delta.
There we go. That's why I'm clicking on the wrong thing. BPL. Right, we're cleared directly to BPL. We're going to descend through to. So the BPL is very familiar. And we are ready to begin our descent in a second. Let's go through the checklist. So we got the. Okay, let me click checklist. Descent. We got a need for the anti-ice check. Ignition on. Let's get the ignition on. Pressurization, landing altitude. So we pressurized our ascent. APU, we're not going to use it. Recognition altimeter. And that's it for the checklist. Just the approach afterwards.
Left 360 degrees, my apologies, Postman 2 Delta.
One of the things that you'll notice on here is you won't see the flight plan pop up. It should pop up as a straight line. You can change the flight plan down here, but again, it doesn't really give you any information at the direction of it. Okay, flight level 150. We are ready to descend. Click altitude off, then click flight level change, and you'll notice a very steep descent rate, which is unrealistic, I think, for the situation we need.
Unicom 122.8,
Unicom 122.8, aspect bird 1983, thank you for your ATC services.
Okay, we'll change the descent rate and make it a little bit slower than that.
London Flow, check 660 Charlie with you. Check 660 Charlie, London, hello, report ready for departure.
I don't know if that's changing it.
Delta ready, check 662 Charlie.
Chatting Hotel Charlie, thanks, heading you free right cleared from the Nicholas, Cessna 219, down the grade 3 knots.
Okay, take on 2 free right, check 662 Charlie.
Excellent. I chose Blackpool, by the way, because it's suitable for such an aircraft. It's a mid-sized jet, but it's still appropriate to land at the airport. Still the right size. Panel colours are a match for the real aircraft.
5 miles to touchdown, runway 25, descent altitude 5,000 feet. The Newcastle QH1008.
Just reading your comments. Thank you, Airsim, for coming into the chat so assistantly. Flight level changes automatic at vertical speed won't work. I have actually had that. You can actually change the vertical speed using this thing. It has done it in the past at least when I've clicked it. And I'll go back to your other comment about panel colours are match the real aircraft. Where in the aircraft was observed. So I don't know. This just doesn't look. I have never seen this kind of primary flight display in an aircraft ever. Even a real aircraft, I've never seen this.
Control easy 1985, taxiing to Juliet 1.
On vertical speed and choose alt function, then the vertical speed will work. Okay. Let's try that then. Let's try vertical speed.
Postman 2 to Delta, turn right, heading 040 degrees, descent altitude 3,500 feet.
Turn right 040 degrees and down to 3000, Postman 2 to Delta.
Delta, Charlie, Papa, Unicorn 1TT, that's alright.
There we go. So you've assisted me there. Cheers. That'll slow the descent rate supposedly, but it's not doing anything.
Shuttle 16 Echo, Unicorn 1TT, that's alright, fine.
128, shuttle 16 here, Actually, on November Mike, runway deck, XL.
Structure on November Mike, thanks, taxi by Alpha, parking stand 1.
Taxi on Alpha, parking stand 1.
I'm changing the vertical speed. It's kind of working, but the VSI is not. It's not indicating anything else. It's just saying 2,000 feet. So maybe we've got an instrument failure there. There's no failed systems though. Yeah, so that VSI has just suddenly stopped working.
Easy 1985, Juliet 1, Roger.
I really hope that the aircraft is going to be able to follow this approach.
Thanks. Runway 23 right, cleared for takeoff, surface winds 190 degrees, 3 knots.
23 right, clear for takeoff, easy 1985.
Okay, how do you set the landing speeds? Because I've not found the reference on the primary flight display as of yet.
Golf Romeo 9, descend to flight level 40.
Descending flight level 40, go for Romeo 9. Okay, I'm trying to do the ACC calls a little bit quicker so I can get on with the checklist, just because it's going to take a bit longer. So we need to go down again to 4,000 feet.
Good evening, easy 641 Mike with you, direct to tempo, flight level 300, climbing through flight level 380.
Easy 64 Mike, Volga Controller, thanks to direct Astley, climb flight level 380.
Say again, direct to, easy 641 Mike.
Direct Astley, it's Alpha Sierra Lima India Bravo.
Yeah, how do you set this landing speed on the primary flight display?
Postman 2 to Delta, we're clear to altitude 3,500 feet, please pass that level, turn left heading 010 degrees.
010 degrees and again, my
Anyway, landing lights on, passenger safety lights
Postman
on.
2 to Delta, stop descent altitude 2,000 feet.
Keeping an eye out, ear out for my registration 9 call sign, in case they give us a call. That's pretty much done. The checklist are very basic at the moment. Before landing, we don't even need to check that. It's so straightforward, landing gear and things. In case of go around, and I check the landing checklist there. So at this point, we need to turn off half bank. Okay, we didn't have a half bank on anyway, but it's limited it. That's probably to do with the design of the aircraft. I've seen that in other planes.
Romeo 9, you can just plan for the full ILS procedure instead of radar vectors. You can route to Bravo Papa Lima to hold. Report when you're ready to commence the approach.
Roger, just proceed to the Bravo Papa Lima for the ILS 28. Go for Romeo 9. Okay, so he's just letting us go in with basic. Probably because he probably knows the plane might not work, which is a relief, to be honest. So he's going to vector us in, I think, for this approach from the Bravo Papa Lima. The flight plan should be turning to...
Heading of 170 degrees on a climb, but flood level 190.
We got runway 28, BPL.
70 degrees in climb 190, check 602 Charlie. It's climb 170, 170. Heading 170, reception 602 Charlie. Right, 8 Whiskey Whiskey, hello, Donna Control, Squawk 1161, climb, flood level 240. Roger, 240 on 116.
Okay, after flaps 1200 knots, LS will display once flaps out, thank you, that's very helpful.
3000, climb, flight level 180 over to 1995. Golf Romeo Lima, leaving Control airspace and track Bravo Papa Lima, deconfliction service outside Control airspace.
I don't know if that's for me, he gave the wrong call sign.
Golf Romeo 9, leaving Control airspace on track Bravo Papa Lima, it's deconfliction service outside.
Roger, would you like me to monitor the Unicom service, Golf Romeo 9?
Negative, it just informs you that you're the one responsible for this operation, so you remain on this frequency.
Okay, thank you very much, Golf Romeo 9.
Emirates 34 Yankee, descent flight level 180, right?
Okay, so I'm outside the controls airspace, he's given us that call to stay on the frequency at least.
Altitude 2000 feet, Blackpool QNH 1009.
72,000 feet with QNH 1009, Golf Romeo 9. 2,000 feet, so we're going straight down. I'm glad we descended nice and fast now. That's one of the things about this plane is because it's lighter, it descends a lot slower.
Level 110, 1985. Right, 8 Whiskey with direct Lelda.
1009, so let's do that.
Roger, route direct Lelda for Rhino 8 Whiskey.
QNH set. I'll probably hand fly the approach, I can't be bothered to use the autopilot. Okay, so half bank has come off. We're now banking at a successful rate. One thing I've noticed, the heading between this heading indicator and this one is not actually aligned, and when you refer to the Garmin as well, sometimes it go off course, as it's doing now actually. We're supposed to be following the BPL arrival, but at this angle we're not going to make that turn in time, so we need to get the turn before at least 30 degrees of bank. At least, but it's hit and miss with this thing.
Easy 641 Mike, request 5 minutes off cockpit.
Right, Boston calling, sorry, just why, sir?
Boston 2 Delta, I'm on the approach for Newcastle, I've missed the burst turn.
Boston 2 Delta, it's my mistake, sir, so I just got distracted. Left heading 180 degrees, sir.
So there's
Delta, left heading 180 degrees, it's my fault, so I just got distracted, my apologies.
there's Blackpool, we're not even over the airport, we're
That's all
going...
good, turning left 180 degrees, Boston 2 Delta.
I feel like that,
Searching calling out of cockpit, what's the call sign?
that map might be a little bit wrong there,
641 Mike.
because that's not going to take us back to runway 28.
Roger.
Let's tune this, tune that into nav1. We'll do the RLS,
Hello, Austrian 35 Alpha with you.
and we'll tune the RLS frequency.
Austrian 35 Alpha London Control, hello. It's the outbound 1 Mike arrival for Manchester. Report your Mach number.
Okay, we need to descend rapidly now because we're way too high up. Set 1 flap.
Mach 0.8 and offset 1 Mike arrival for 35 Alpha.
Yeah, I do need to slow down.
Austrian 35 Alpha, Roger. Maintain Mach decimal 80 or greater.
FN 80 or greater, 35 Alpha.
Easy 1985, climb flight level 193. Flight level 190, easy 1985. Channel 6 Hotel Charlie, resume all navigation direct Goodwood, Golf Whiskey Charlie, Unicorn 1TT8, bye bye.
Navigation directed with Unicorn 122 Decimal 8, Channel 6 Hotel Charlie, thanks.
And Golf Romeo 9, when you're ready, you're cleared for the ILS approach, runway 28, report established on final approach track.
So for the ILS runway 28, report established on the glide slope, Golf Romeo 9er.
Emirates 34 Yankee, descend flight level 16, sorry.
Awesome. ATC is really good when you get ATC online, especially the London North.
Descend flight level 16, sorry.
160, 34 Yankee.
Easy 1985, Unicron 122.8, goodbye. 122.8, easy 1985, thanks.
London Lights,
Good evening,
Strobes.
Ryan 23 Quebec, back, inbound to Index, squawk 6631 with you.
Right, up here for the Quebec Mike, London, hello, climb flight level 330, descent 1 Golf arrival.
Climb into flight level 230, descend also Ryan 23 Quebec, Mike.
Flaps
Right,
15.
Alpha, contact Scottish Control 135.530.
I'm going to change it to turn the autopilot off. I'm going to turn this to navigation so we can see the glide slope.
London Control, hello, it's the odd bed 1 Mike arrival, Mach decimal 78 or less.
And we need to select it here on navigation so we can see where it is.
On-bed 1 level arrival and 1.8 or less. Or again,
That alarm going off is the landing gear
Odd bed 1
warning.
Mike arrival, and
That's
Mach
fine.
decimal 78 or less.
okay, 1 mic arrival and 1.8 or less.
Looking like a good approach. Going nice and...
78 or less.
Okay, so there's a reference speed.
Okay, so 1.78 or less.
87.
Okay, Mach 0.78 or less kilometers.
And London Centre, runner 8 whiskey, sorry. Just wondering, can we get her final cruise up?
Let's get established and localised. This is not our runway, it just looks like it.
Sorry, it's just happened again. Turn left heading 350 degrees.
Ours is in the distance.
Left turn 350 degrees, pulse 122 Delta.
Okay, then right, sir, sorry.
It's all good.
The other station calling, second. Ryanair 8 whiskey, we're looking for flight level 260 if it's available.
Okay, we have no silencer option here for the alarm, but we have got an AC bearing warning.
Whiskey.
That'll be for the aircraft
340, do you require higher, sir?
air conditioning.
Oh, Roger, sorry, 340, I had a...
Anti-ice off.
mismatched numbers, I apologise.
Window heat can be on, but all the anti-ice stuff comes off. There's the ILS.
We'll walk it this time. Turn left heading 300 degrees and you cleared ILS approach on 025. Suddenly my fault, say it won't happen again, so apologies.
Left turn 300 degrees and I'm clear for the ILS for
Being very polite on Vatsim this evening.
Pulse 122 Delta.
Alright, sorry, sir.
Do love London Centre though, it does a fantastic job.
Still on the frequency, 135.530.
We're established almost 160. We're a bit too off from it at the moment to get a proper altitude.
321, Mach decimal 77, all left.
Mach decimal 77 or less scale of people.
London Control, easy 641 Mike, back in Cockpit.
Easy 649, thank you. You can contact Scottish Control on 135.530, bye-bye.
135.530 for easy 641 Mike, thank you very much, have a good evening.
Bye.
Okay, there we go. We got some clouds here. We got a bit of a challenge. We don't have any indication on the radar about weather though. There's no thing popping up. This is brutal. This is a proper IFR now. Okay, we're gonna have to use the built-in map because I have no idea where we are. Go Sierra 9 Romeo 9, just about established for ILS runway 28 into Blackpool.
Go Romeo 9, thanks, runway action right at service terminate, runway 28, cleared to land. And the surface wind's 260 degrees full on, so once vacated, stand off chase.
Wilco, once vacated, clear to land runway 28, go for Romeo 9er.
Boston 2 to Delta, then heading 2802 to establish.
I'm following the ILS, really struggling at the moment. Let's get the gear down, let's get the flaps down full.
Right, 8 whiskey, we're clear to climb higher.
I feel like we're going to go around. I had this issue on the last flight. Okay, we got oh my god, I think we're crashing. I don't know what's going on now. Jesus.
Uniform, flight level 230, ISO flight from Edinburgh to Manchester, and 15 miles inbound Lakey, top of descent.
I feel like we came into really bad turbulence.
6 Mike uniform London, thanks, descent,
Holy shit, we got an aileron failure.
Descent to flight level 150, request Lakey, 1 more arrival into Manchester.
Right, flap surface gone.
Is 6 Mike uniform. It should have been given to you by the Scottish control, but if not received, then it's the Lakey or the Mike arrival.
We're gonna have to stick the gear up. We can't do, we've just balls that approach up because the right fucking ailerons were
given by Scottish control, request Lakey 1 Mike. I said, as I said, is it Lakey or the Mike if not given?
Jesus.
Lakey 1 Mike copy, 6 Mike anymore. Identity for Quebec Mike, with direct to keep that.
Fuck's sake.
Direct to keep 2 Quebec 9.
Too low, terrain.
Mayday, go for Sierra 9, Romeo 9. Unfortunately, I've just been on final, lost total control of the aircraft. We've lost our right ailerons control, it seems.
Go for Romeo 9, no, it's a conserve position now, that's for no 28, so just DD controls will call down, be able to handle it. Apologies.
Okay, no problem, thank you very much. Go for Romeo 9.
Boston 2 to Delta, runway 25, clear to land, the surface winds 260 degrees, 5 knots.
Okay, we're balls.
Clear to land, runway 25, Portsmouth 2 to Delta.
Right at 88 whiskey.
We are fucked.
Level 180 to be leveled by seat crew.
I mean, we got full right rudder. We're gonna have to try and get down though, because we can't carry on like this.
35 Alpha, when ready, descend, flight level 290, level by outbed, CPDLC cancel.
What have we lost? We've lost right flap. That shouldn't be affecting the ailerons as much as it is. Well, basically we're needing right full left rudder to counteract the roll on it. Okay, well there's the runway. We got a gear failure now. That's great. Yeah, we got a lot of failures here. The flap's missing, but it's not showing as missing.
I'm ready to send flight level 290 by outbed.
If I get down now, I deserve a bloody award for this. Roger. Go for him and on. Okay. Well, ATC's helped us out, but we're gonna have to put rudder in. Full on this, isn't it? There's too many people on the network for this to happen at the moment. Unfortunately, I think he wants me to resolve the issue by quick fixing it, which I'm tempted to do, but it takes out the realism, doesn't it? Come on.
Right, Romeo Mike, London control. Roger, it's the next one Lima arrival.
God, this is bad.
Right, Romeo Mike, what's the request level? Is that level 25, sorry?
20.
Second, right, Romeo Mike, sir. Right, Romeo Mike, what's the request level stuff? Level
Okay, we're not doing reverses, we'll just pull them out. And speed right.
That's we can get to whatever right for Romeo Mike. Roger.
Whew.
KLM 45, London control hello, route direct Cessna.
Can't believe we just vacated. We just did that. We've completely survived it. Anyway, let's get parked up. Nice animation on the reverses and spoilers. Good to slow us down. We're going to just taxi off the end here. I thought the other landing the other day was hard, but turns out going through that cloud is worse than it seems.
descend flight level 70.
250 degrees, descend to 70.
86 Mike Uniform, descend flight level 140. Descend flight level 140, 86 Mike Uniform.
Let's stop here and get the checklist up. After landing checklist. Taxi lights on. Flaps up. Transponder to standby. Pitot static heat's coming off. It's got a very overwhelming checklist, I think. They need to have some emergency procedures in there.
For Yankee, descend to altitude 4,000 feet, MDQNH is 1009.
Exterior lights, beacons off.
4,000 QNH,
Transponder
1009.
strobes off.
Mike Uniform, descend flight level 80. Descend to flight level 80, EZ6 Mike Uniform. Runner 8 Whiskey Whiskey, contact Dublin approach, 121.1, bye-bye.
121.1 for 8 Whiskey Whiskey, bye-bye.
Runner 23 Quebec Mike, Unicom 1TT-8, bye-bye.
Oh, thank you, London North. Look at that flight plan.
Postman 2 Delta, welcome to Newcastle, taxi stand 2.
You're probably looking at that line thinking, like, what the hell is going on?
Thanks for the service, buddy. Have a good one.
We made it though, we made it.
Austrian 3, disregard.
EJ to November Foxtrot passing 3,100 and 5,000 Sandbar 1 Romeo. Flight 190, ECA to November Foxtrot.
Austrian 35 Alpha on conversion, speed 280 knots or greater.
On conversion to 80 knots or greater, 35 Alpha.
KLM 321 on conversion, speed 270 knots or less. KLM 321 on conversion, speed 270 knots or less.
Okay, on the conversion, speed 270 knots or less,
Easy 80 November Foxtrot with direct mid-est, Mike India Delta.
Direct Mike India Delta, ECA to November Foxtrot.
Good evening, Easy 16 Alpha Lima 23 right Manchester. Okay, 16 Alpha Lima London, alarm thanks, report ready for departure. We'll be ready on reaching 16 Alpha Lima.
I'm gonna need to just have a break for a moment.
This one's 190 degrees 3 knots. Did you rightly take off, Easy 16 Alpha Lima?
Thank the ATC as well. I don't know if I should do it over the radio or just over the text. Courtesy thing, really, isn't it?
110 confirm on speed 220 greater.
Heading 130 degrees.
130, 34 Yankee.
Easy 6 Mike Uniform, leave Rosslyn, heading 150 degrees.
Parking brake set.
And speed 220
Control
knots or less.
On. All anti-ice systems off.
Heading 150 and speed less than
Throttles.
220.
Put them off. No more fuel to the engines.
35 Alpha, descend for level 180.
Generators.
Level 180 or 35 Alpha.
Pack safety
KLM
switch.
321, descend for level 180.
Stereo lights
Descend
off.
for level 180, okay, that's it.
EC 80 November Foxtrot, over to Unicom, goodbye.
We'll have to do it. It's like a little bit different to the chat list because it's missing a few items.
MRH 3 for Yankee, continue to left and heading 110 degrees now. MRH 3 for Yankee, turn left heading 110 degrees.
Left 110, that's 34 Yankee.
Easy 6 Mike Uniform, descend for flood over 7.
It's so busy as well. It's, what day are we on? We're on Wednesday. 20 to 9 on Wednesday in GMT time, it's packed.
Pass. Request we are approach 23 right, Easy 6 Mike Uniform. 6 Mike Uniform.
London North will be controlling all of this area I'm in. So he's controlling the entirety of the north of England right now. There's got to be at least 30 people in it.
Easy 6 Mike Uniform, I'll just confirm you like the full procedure or you like just radar vectors? If possible,
I'll send him I'll just send a message, it's easier.
Easy 6 Mike Uniform. Easy 6 Mike Uniform, Roger. Can we direct to Mike Charlie Tango now? And you can resume normal speed.
And let's carry on with the checklist. Let's get the radio off. Avionics. So when we turn that off, we shouldn't be able to hear the radio now. That's pretty realistic, I guess. APU shutdown, we don't have it on to begin with. Recirculation fans, we didn't turn it on to begin with either. So that was a step we missed. Emergency light. So there's no option there to turn fuel pumps, but you should be turning fuel pumps and ignition at least back to normal position. But you wouldn't leave fuel pumps on; it would cause issues. Batteries, they've missed a few things off. Like I say, they've missed. What have they missed off that I've missed? We just close that window a sec. Disconnect from Vatsim. Well, I mean, it went well, and then I think deciding to come in too fast at the end where it was definitely my mistake there, but we got to see just how sort of realistic that aircraft handled at the end. I mean, we lost a flap, we didn't see the flap missing from the surface, which is something you would expect to see. We are going to disconnect the interior master, and then we're going to hop outside the aircraft. I'm going to do some final thoughts. I'm going to summarise everything we've been through, why we've still got an annunciation panel on, because the battery's on. There we go. Okay, so let's hop out. Depressurise the door. If any of my regulars watching this on catch up, please rate that emergency. I almost crashed, but rated it out of 10. I'm going to give it a 10. Okay, let's walk to the battery. It looks pretty nice in Blackpool. The aircraft's looking good in the sunset. Let's go to the battery. Let's get the battery disconnected. There we go. Let's get the packs out of the aircraft. Somehow. Perhaps I'm not close enough to it. Ah, there we go. And we don't need GPU, we're not going anywhere else tonight. We're going to be doing full shutdown, so you can see the chocks have come back. These piezo tubes. Yes, it's gone into standby mode, so that landing and that accidental landing was really my fault, but considering we've lost our right flap and control. Right, that's not a failure, that's just a feature to stop the surfaces moving. But yeah, the flap, there's no indication there that the flap is actually gone from the aircraft, so I can still see the flap, and I guarantee if I put them down that it's going to appear, because it did earlier when I had, unsurprisingly, the same issue. So well too fast. Just be aware that because it's a lighter aircraft, the landing speed will be lower, and the flap cannot be lowered. I don't know, I had full flaps on, it was below 150 knots, but obviously it's just super sensitive. So I appreciate anyone watching. We're going to summarise the points. Let's go to summary now. So we've got a bit of an absolute resolution here. Summary points and a resolution with a lot of scores. So we're going to be a little bit of time just yet. It's been about 2 hours. I think we've done well on time to get all this information in. Remember, in the Citation C-560XL, not the XLS, has been pointed out multiple times. Okay, so let's summarise. So go back to where I was earlier in the summary. So we had a decent level of realism, yes. Flight dynamics were good. Handling was good, but there was some realism effects at the end there which could have been better. Like, we could have had the flaps actually being removed. The default aircraft in X-Plane usually have their aircraft surfaces removed when you overspeed. So they're animated in X-Plane, but not on this particular model. You would expect that at this cost. Especially when taxiing, yes, so I'll go back to my reference to the handling. It is pretty realistic, but it's difficult. It is difficult because it's such a lightweight jet. Autopilot's a little bit difficult to understand. It is missing crucial features, which it's strange they haven't put them in, but they decided to put an augmentation switch and a reality switch. I don't understand that choice. Against the philosophy, really, of trying to make a realistic study level plane. If you want to make it study level, you will make it, you know, you have one aircraft and you have to do it properly. You don't have a choice to make it easier. That's the reality of the situation. I'll come to a bit more of that at the end. It's not obvious how to change comm frequencies. Like I say, there's not really an explanation to click on the Garmin 1000. The Garmin 1000 is not the best choice, but it's the argument that it's easy in the FMC. I don't think it's going to fly when the Citation X on default aircraft and X-Plane 12 is actually pretty good with its FMC, and it's very intuitive. In fact, you don't even need to use it, and you can still fly a route from A to B. So yeah, there's that issue as well. We could maybe later update, they might do an update and remove it and add the FMC, and that'd be a good improvement in the aircraft, I think. But I think for the time being, focus on what you can improve. You know, that the visuals on the external part are actually alright, but internally they need big work. You can have an old looking plane, but it shouldn't look like an old simulator. You know, it should still look pretty good. You read the manual, the POH, I don't even know where to begin. It's hundreds of pages long. Reading the aircraft manual and learning those checklists, the start up and the flight procedures is something everyone does on a new aircraft, so everybody's going to have to learn to some extent, but they don't have to learn to the extent of reading all that information, you know, through it. They just have practice and they read a few things and watch a few videos. They don't have, and of course they use the checklist, they don't have these online POHs which are going to take them forever. Having said that, it doesn't make it a study level aircraft, because in order to have a study level aircraft to the level in which real pilots can use it, to train for both real and imagined scenarios, that would make it study level. But it's study level in the sense that you have to do something which most simulators do, most flight simulators do, which is to learn the new system and the new plane. Most people do that, and it doesn't take them very long. So I think there's this blowing, I think exaggerating the realism is a real issue, to be honest. It's not as difficult as people think, and it actually would take an average amount of time to learn that. You'd probably take one flight if you knew what to click on and how to make it work properly. It's just that it slows it down because you have to figure out where things are and, you know, how to turn them on and things. So that's I guess functionality, interactability, ease of use needs to be improved. If you do enjoy listening and reading, though, you're going to have a blast with the POH. It's going to be a long read, and if you enjoy watching the tutorials, they are pretty useful. They'll give you the information, but they're not really got proper implementation. So the checklists, you know, you should definitely have checklists in the cockpit. It's not. It's just, I don't know, I don't like the argument that online is easier because you can update it. A checklist is never going to change, and it's not going to change in an aircraft for many years, and even when it does, the changes are very minor. Just something to take into account for the updates. Ooh, but those that are learning or studying aircraft type in real life and using it and purchasing for that purpose, from a simulation point of view, it's not really appropriate for real world practice. It's not appropriate for people who want to practice as if it's the real plane. It doesn't fit the job. The price, considering the lack of the features of functionality, the lack of things like the FMC, texture qualities, interaction, low sound. There is a low sound, by the way. It's not very good in the cockpit. There's no separation between external and internal. Strange handling. You can't bank the ailerons fully left or right. You know, it cannot be ignored that the developer progressively ignored other people's reviews, either to lower the cost. In fact, they raised the cost. Those two reviews on YouTube were over 2 hours, about 2 hours 20 minutes each. Both extensive, detailed and dedicated reviews from respected people in the aviation simulation community. The fact that the developers ignored their suggestions to lower the price and increased it cannot be ignored. That price point has been way off market for something of this detail. The reason to increase the price, knowing the implications of it, is not justified. So, you know, for that reason, it can't be recommended at the current price it's at, and I would concur with what everyone else has said on their reviews. So it should be around, I mean, $30 is probably pushing it. I think 20 to 25. Although we can't ignore the fact that the developers worked hard on this. They clearly put a good amount of effort into it, and it is a good plane, but it's just it's not up to the 12.2 X-plane version. You wouldn't expect this kind of standard in X-plane, to be honest, but it is still enjoyable to fly. I enjoyed it. enjoy the external and I do enjoy going through the checklist, but it feels rigorous. It doesn't feel improvised, and you need improvisation to fly a plane. There's no guarantees, so it's like this feels too structured, and it feels like we're following a formula. If you have a spontaneous thing and you don't follow the checklists, you're actually probably better off, and it would be a lot quicker. When the flight operations are accessed, like I say, it's from the preparation, takeoff, landing, and shutdown. It's fun and enjoyable. I would reiterate that point because it gave me satisfaction. I'm happy to have it now. I'm happy to keep it. I think it's enjoyable, but it's just not. There's no reason why it wouldn't be. Everyone gets happy when they have a nice, successful flight. But because X-Plane 12.2 elevates the graphics, the weather systems and more, it's making the plane seem better than it is. It's hard to explain, but because the plane isn't that good in terms of graphics, the X-Plane quality is making it appear better than it is. So, anyway, there's the interaction aspects, which, although small, are still making the corporate jet a lot of fun to fly. You know, those small features like the fold-out trays, the lights, the baggage compartment, the GPU unit, the fact that you can do you can put the chocks on, the cones, the pitot heats. You can't do it yourself, but you know, those features make it realistic to life, which is good. So they've done well on that point. It's a heavy workload. It is a heavy workload when you start. Most simmers don't want to do that. I know clicking on the start menu or menu is lazy and it's not realistic, but realistically, people don't want to go through it and do the hard work. So they're probably going to skip the checklist. They're probably going to skip and just go straight to start up aircraft. So this feedback, I think this feedback is valuable actually. It required about 8 hours from me before I even began to scratch the surface of learning the ropes. And what I mean is I'm still understanding the systems and the aerodynamics, because that's the part where people learn. That's the part where people need to understand. It's handling differently to the Citation X because it's lighter. I went into that landing way too fast, and therefore I hadn't studied the speeds properly, which is my fault. I accept that. But nobody's going to take the time to do that. Most people wouldn't if they're not a serious flight simulator, say sim player. So they might play it as fun after work. They may look at the primary flight display and say, well, okay, there's no VREF, that means I can do what I want. And then we have problems with failures. I end up crashing nearly. Yeah, so part of the initialization on the C-560XL was like the 2 hours initial things, just finding out the locations, functions, requirements to get started. After that, my first flight was London to Guernsey. I had a successful ILS, and it all worked perfectly. That was satisfying. It was a good sign that despite its flaws, it has potential to be a great aircraft. Yes, somebody else said that on their reviews. If they do improve the graphical textures, it will be a great aircraft. They also need to change some of the handling as well. It would be good to have a little bit more control over that yoke. It feels a little bit sloppy on the control column, I'm not gonna lie, even at fast speeds. Recognised and succeeded without error, yes, that's a good one, and it records your hours. One flight was a loss though, because the flight plan had been lost halfway, so it couldn't follow it, and I had to hand fly the approach to get back on track. So I'm going to break down my final ratings, and this is absolutely it. This is enough. I'm not going to say anything else about the aircraft after this, and we'll terminate the review. So the overall rating, we're going to go from external to internal to the cost index, which is basically my way of saying the actual cost of the aircraft. External visual quality, including the animations and the weather. So the I don't know what they're called, but you can see the condensation, all the stuff coming off the wings when you're flying in. So I'll give that a good 4.5 out of 5 because the external is actually pretty good. I like the external features, I like the animations, they are well done and they're high quality. Okay, so in terms of the sound design and lighting, it's not the best. It's could use improvement. I think making the buttons. I know that's what the buttons sound like in real life because you've mentioned it. The developers mentioned it, but the sound design is not the loudest. Maybe worth tweaking the buttons to make them a little bit louder. Maybe worth tweaking the lights just to make them a little bit brighter as well. I understand that it's based on the real sound, but sometimes real sounds are not enough, and it's not just with the buttons, it's with other features. So I can't hear call-outs, I can't hear... it's very hard to hear things because the plane's so loud inside from the engines. Okay, moving on to the visual fidelity of the internal aircraft. So I took into account the low texture quality and the outdated design and colours. We can't rate on the outdated design, that's just the aircraft itself. You know, that's how Cessna made it, and that's the owner of the aircraft who said it that way. The colour choice, maybe they could have changed it as a dev. They could have said brighter colours would have been happier and a bit more modern. So I have to give that 3 out of 5 for visual internal in terms of cockpit and cabin. Cockpit instrumentation, functions and realism. So I found it lacks instruments functionality and doesn't have obvious suggestions. There's also no ICAS system, and ICAS is a engine monitoring system. It might be the aircraft doesn't have it, but most aircraft would have a way of functioning things like brake pressure and hydraulic pressure. So for flight dynamics, cockpit instrumentation and things, and the lack of instrumentation, just things not being where you would expect it, I'd give that a 4 out of 5, which is actually quite generous. Flight dynamics and handling, I really enjoy that. That's 4.5 out of 5. It's good, although the trim wheel is somewhat overpowered and the handling is somewhat sluggish at times. So overall realism, the aircraft is a 3.5 out of 5, which is about 6.5 out of 10, which is actually, you know, not bad. I think this is the developer Airsim 3D's first plane, and I'm enjoying it, I'm liking it. I don't think I dislike it. You know, it's a good addition. It's a small jet, which is what I was looking for. So personally, I enjoy it. It's just I'm trying to give a fair review here, which is going to take into account everybody's viewpoint. Overall cost index doesn't score very high, it only scores a 2.5 out of 5. The price needs to be halved for the quality of the textures and the functionality being skewed, and the fact that there's no checklists that are in a proper checklist book, the fact that there's, you know, there's no FMC, there's no, I've heard people mention AviTab integration. I'm not concerned about that, but perhaps an electronic flight bag or a small iPad on the side, which would be realistic. It doesn't even have to have AviTab integration, it just needs to be there, have a map functionality, etc. And other features. But for the first aircraft of the market, it's pretty good. It just needs to humble itself a little bit because the demand is high for high quality simulation packages, some of which of them include considerably more features like the FMC, the EFB, checklists, HD textures, HD sound, and fully functional buttons. So yeah, it's not high-end by any means, it's not low-end, it's mid, and I think a $30 price range, concur with another review of that. $30 is absolutely satisfactory price for this. So yeah, I appreciate everyone being here. Really thanks to Airsim 3D for joining us for this flight and helping us with some references. Hopefully you can take on board my feedback, and hopefully Virtual Air and some other people in chat enjoyed this stream as well. It's been a long one, about 2 hours 30 minutes. This is undoubtedly one of the most in-depth, comprehensive reviews of this aircraft on YouTube. I think the third review that's ever been done. So I've got to go now because I'm exhausted, to be honest. But yeah, pleasure to fly, and I'll see you all in the next one. Take care.